What do you mean by that? Like, what's it foolproof against?
And it's almost suggesting that anyone who has a soul is a bit of a potentially a bit of a fool, but that's not the case. But yeah, when I say God made a foolproof system, it's really clever the way God designed the entire universe. The way God designed the universe was God first designed all of the laws that govern the universe. So before the universe actually came into being, into existence, the laws were already established. Now, the majority of these laws and the most powerful of these laws are governing the human soul. So that means that God, before God created the universe, knew that God was going to create the human soul. And in fact, the human soul has been, the universe has been created for the human soul to exist. So it's like the human soul's playground. All right. So we first need to understand that God made this big set of laws that govern the potential existence of the human soul. Then God created the human soul, and then God created the universe in which the human soul could use as a playground.
Right. So what you're saying is, God did all of this for the human soul.
Correct.
God created the framework or the laws that would govern the experience of the soul. Is that what you mean?
And not only the experience of the soul, but govern the very operation of the universe in which the soul lived, and the interaction between the universe and the soul itself. Yes. So God created a whole series of very complex laws in order to do that. Now, this means that God made the entire system foolproof. In other words, we can't make mistakes with the human soul. We can, that are unable to be corrected, I mean. We can make mistakes, certainly, that need correction, but we can't actually make mistakes where the human soul somehow destroys the universe.
Right.
And we can't make mistakes where the human soul is not governed by law still. So in other words, the human soul is always governed by law, and we can't avoid that. We can't get away from that. And the laws are all previously established before the universe even came into existence. And what that means then is that the soul itself is this integrated system that God created that interacts with the universe, and particularly interacts with the laws of the universe, because there are some parts of the universe that only get created when the soul interacts within the law framework in a certain way.
Yeah.
That means then that it's impossible to break the human soul. In other words, it's impossible to cause so much damage to the human soul that it's irreparable. Right? And in that regard, God made a foolproof system. It doesn't matter how much we are fools and how much we desire to break the laws and desire to get away from the framework. In the end, the human soul is an unbreakable piece of machinery that God has made that nothing can destroy. Nothing, as far as it's known, can destroy aside from God herself. Also, while the human body can be destroyed and go into different elements, and while the spirit body theoretically can do the same thing, it is highly unlikely that that can happen to the human soul. And when I say highly unlikely, we don't know because it's never happened. But at this stage, there's no record of any single human soul ever being destroyed or being put back into its elemental parts.
Yeah.
Because of that, you could say that God created a foolproof human soul, a soul that is unable to be destroyed, a soul that no matter what mistakes we make, we're unable to fully decompose the soul itself. In other words, the soul will always retain its existence after its creation.
Okay, so you said a few things there that I would like to ask more about. You said that basically the soul can't ever be destroyed. Even if we want to destroy it, it can't happen. But then you described what sounded
as far as we know.
As far as we know, yes.
Who knows that at some point in the future God may have a process for human souls that haven't received divine love? I don't know. But at this point in time, there has been no single human soul that's ever been destroyed into its elemental parts. In other words, the human soul, no matter how bad it gets, no matter how self-destructive it becomes, and no matter how much of intention it has to act out of harmony with love, still can't get destroyed. So in that regard, it's foolproof.
And in fact, it almost seems to be the other way around, doesn't it? No matter what we do, universe and the laws that we interact with seem to push us towards growth, don't they?
Well, they push us towards correction.
Yeah.
And so the reality is the way God created this universe is that every framework, if you like, the universal framework, which are laws, which we'll classify as laws, that govern the human soul and govern the universe itself and the interaction between the soul and the universe, which is a very important factor, these laws are unable to be broken, and therefore they are always in operation, and they impose themselves upon the human soul. So no matter how far the human soul gets out of harmony with those laws, the laws are attempting to correct the human soul back into harmony.
Yeah.
And this is the beautiful system that God made. It's such a foolproof system. It doesn't matter how much we take the human soul out of harmony through the exercise of our will. The law framework that in which we live, the universe in which we live, is pulling us or attempting to pull us back into harmony.
Yeah.
And so it's a self-correcting system. Eventually, given enough time, every single individual in the universe will be pulled back into harmony with the universal laws.
Yeah. So from what you said earlier and what you said now, it sounds like the soul operates within a system, which is the universe and the universal laws that God has.
Well, the soul operates within the universal laws,
Yeah.
and the universe and the soul are basically the subsequent result of those universal laws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
And the
that
soul is the most complicated of all of God's creations. The human soul is the most complicated. So it's far more complex than the human body. It's far more complex than the spirit body. It's far more complex than the universe itself, actually. the human
Yeah,
soul.
so this is where I want to ask you, because in your introduction there you said that you basically described to me, it sounded like two systems. One is the system of God's universe in operation, of which the soul is a part of, and then you described the soul as a system itself.
Well, it's even more than that, because there are parts of the universe that are yet to be created, that the soul has the potential to create through the governing systems of the laws. So really, the two systems are the laws that govern the interaction between the soul and the universe, and then the soul, the universe itself, of which the soul is a part. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But the soul has the ability to create new universes as it proceeds.
Yes.
So if we classify not only all of the universes that have been created at this point, but all of the universes that are potentially able to be created, given the governing of the laws, then we're saying that the soul is more complicated and complex than all of those things,
Yes.
because it has the ability to actually seed or create those things.
Uh-huh.
So, but there are those two factors, the factor of the soul itself and the universe of that has been created in which the soul plays,
Yep.
are all governed by universal laws that God established prior to the creation of both the universe and the soul.
Yeah. And so I suppose I was asking about, you, in your statement you said there's a foolproof system with the soul, and from what you've just said, it sounds like there's a foolproof system that happens universally.
Correct.
That the soul operates in and impacts upon through the creation of new dimensions and things like that.
Yes.
And then today we're going to talk more about how the human soul functions, and you could almost call that a system, or it's a way in which the human soul operates.
Yes.
And is that, so this universal
And
thing
they're
that
all
you've just...
laws that determine its operation. These are all laws, principles that determine the soul's operation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So everything that God has designed has laws that govern its operation, right the way through from the soul, the most complex creation of God, right the way through to the other lesser complex creations of God, right down to the individual elements. They are all, and even right down to individual subatomic particles, they all are created and governed by the laws that surround them. So none of them can operate outside of a law. So that none of them operate outside of the laws that God has established.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
And mankind has yet to discover most of those laws. Like we think we've discovered most of them, but actually we've yet to discover a minute particle of those laws that fully govern the entire system of the soul and the universe in which it lives. Yeah.
So the foolproof system is what? the universe in which it lives, or the soul itself?
Both.
Yeah.
Both are foolproof systems.
Yeah.
Everything God creates is a foolproof system, and we are arrogant when we say that God made a mistake, because God does not make mistakes when it comes to any system that God creates.
Yeah.
And God created the soul, and therefore God did not make a mistake with the soul. And any appearance of mistake is actually the exercise of our will in a direction that's out of harmony with the law.
Yeah.
And then these mistakes appear.
Mm-hmm.
But they are of our own creation,
Yeah. Yeah.
not the creation of God.
But from your statement, it's foolproof, and you were saying that
Yes.
that it's foolproof in terms of destruction. You can't destroy the universe, you can't destroy the soul.
It's
as far
even
as it's known.
foolproof with regard to when we create outside or attempt to create outside of the law. The law is still imposed, and as a result, there is a correction, and there is a painful experience that the soul experiences, and all of that happens as a result of us attempting to operate outside the law. It's impossible to operate outside of the law. We need to give up that as a concept.
Yeah.
And any pain that the human soul individually or collectively experiences is the result of the individual or the collective taking actions that are out of harmony with the laws that are fixed and immovable.
Yep.
And nothing can change those laws
Yep.
aside from God.
And so this is the other aspect of how it's foolproof.
Correct.
We can't wreck the laws, we can't break the laws, we can't break our soul,
We can't manipulate the
Yeah.
law, we can't
Yeah.
manoeuvre around the laws,
Yeah.
just like you can here on earth. You can manoeuvre around a bit, manoeuvre around the laws, but you can't do that. You can't break the soul in any physical sense or emotional sense or spiritual sense, actually. And any concept that you can is based on an imaginary concept that humans have created, living out of harmony with the laws of themselves.
Yeah.
And it's just a remarkable system. And the more time you spend investigating this human soul, the more remarkable it appears.
Because it sounds like you're saying not only is it a foolproof system, you can't buck the system, you can't override the system. So then presumably everything we're going to talk about today, which is really the system or how the soul functions,
Yeah,
the system of the soul, if we can call it that,
yeah,
these things are removable from what you've just said.
yes.
But
yeah.
but given what you said about the laws, presumably they're all there because they're expedient and work well.
Well, they're all there too because they're all loving. So all of God's laws are loving. So that means that every single law that God's ever created for the complete operation of the universe and the operation of the human soul are always loving. So all of these principles we are going to discuss are also loving. It doesn't mean that we're going to discuss exhaustive principles, because obviously we're in a process, humanity is in a process of discovering the soul more and more and more. And obviously as we discover more things about the soul, there's a likelihood that we'll discover more laws that govern the operation of the soul, and therefore we can't just say these are all and only laws that govern the operation of the soul,
Yeah.
but they are the laws that we're going to discuss more fully today are actually little known on the earth. You know, very few people on the earth, if any, actually really know these laws or understand the principle of the operation of these laws. And it's only in the spirit world, in the higher spheres and dimensions, that most people have come to know the operation of these particular laws to a degree. And I'm not saying it's to a complete degree.